What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Music Guy Podcast, the podcast about a couple of working musicians in the Toronto, Ontario area. My name's Al Rowe. I'm a music guy. I play guitar, I sing, I write songs, I make records, I teach, I stream, I do a bunch of stuff, music related and otherwise. My co-host coming at you from Whitby, Ontario. He's also a music guy. He plays guitar, sings backup vocals, composes.
Not backing up nobody now.
Not playing live at the moment, but you know who is really. It's Mr. Michael Hebbs.
Woo.
And we're very, very excited to welcome on an old friend of ours and friend of the show, our special guest this week. Excellent drummer, excellent human being, plays drums for a whole bevy of artists, including Alessia Cole, Cole Jack, X's for Eyes, Vanessa Marie Carter, Beverly Mahood, Sarah Brightman, and many, many more. He is a Yamaha education clinician. Pleased to introduce my friend and yours, Mr. Aaron Spink.
Gentlemen,
Yay.
how we doing?
How are you?
Hey.
I'm doing all right. How about you boys?
You know.
Can't complain. Doing a
It is what
podcast.
it is right now.
Just making it, you know, dipping a toe back into the world as things slowly
Yeah.
start to, restrictions slowly start to relax and gigs start to be able to happen. I got a wedding gig tomorrow.
What?
Yeah, I'm doing just the ceremony and just the cocktails. There's going to be 12 guests, and I'm going to be very far away from all of them. And I'm
Are
just
you
going to be...
playing just by yourself?
Yeah, solo, acoustic, and vocals. I got to bring my own PA. I can't touch anybody, or nobody can touch me. And I'll, you know, wear a
I
mask
feel like
when
this is what they
possible.
wanted all along with
Yes.
the musicians at these things.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, this is an excuse to do that now.
Finish your set and get in that fucking room. Get in the box.
Make like a tree and get out of here.
Get out of here. Yeah. So it's going to be, I want to say it's going to be interesting. It's probably not. It's probably just going to feel like most gigs, except like there might be a couple of odd situations where I'm like, somebody goes for the handshake and I'm like, oh, whoa, and like psych them out.
Get the
you
fuck
know?
away from me.
Yeah. I've done that to a number of people over quarantine and I feel
Yeah.
awful every time. Like
Mhm.
when somebody extends the hand and you don't shake it, like that's the disrespect.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly
You know what I
I'm worried
mean?
about. I don't give a shit if I accidentally put out the hand and go,
No,
"Whoa,"
no,
but if someone
no.
puts their hand out and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh man, I want to please this person.
Yeah.
I think
wanna
a
shake
good
their hand.
alternative would just be like really
Just touching their
force the
face.
just
See,
just
you know what
palm of the face.
my issue is that like I've got that reflex to just, if somebody extends the hand, I just automatically go for the handshake, you know?
Yeah, he's
And then, but then I realize halfway through that motion that we can't do that right now. So then I pull it away and then it's like a total psych out. And
yeah.
I'm
You
like,
should say psych. That'd be dope.
yeah, psych. Yeah, exactly. So, and then people will be like, oh, well, let's just bump fists, or like, there's this weird elbow thing happening right now that I'm not really a fan of. And I'm just like, yo, we don't have to touch it all. You know, I'm
Yep.
cool with that.
I was gonna say take a page out of the book of Howie Mandel. He unadulterated, just doesn't care about your feelings. He's just really animate about making sure, because he's a germaphobe,
Mhm.
not to shake hands. So even when
Yeah.
you put the hand out, he's just like, elbows are good. Elbows are good. Like
Yeah.
that's always something
Right.
to do. But I know Al is just saying it's a weird sort of motion. So
It's weird because it's like I think we said this before, but my mom, she watches what's that show? Downton Abbey, and it's set in a time recently after, you know, fucking
so it's
the
like the
pandemic.
20s.
yeah, and they don't fucking shake hands or hug or anything.
Oh, really?
You know?
that
maybe
is
that's gonna be
also
a
a
thing.
British thing that was very waspy and very
Yeah.
so.
See, I don't watch that shit.
Maybe that's where it really came from. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So, I mean, we've played a lot of music together over the years. Aaron's a Humber College graduate. We worked together at a school called Marsman Music back in Scarborough for
yeah.
many
Still
years.
there.
Yeah. Mike still works there. That's right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we've played a bunch of gigs together. We haven't been super in touch over the last handful of months since the lockdown and everything. So what has that been like for you, and how have things changed? How have they stayed the same?
So in some regard, because I'm already somewhat of a recluse myself, it was a dream come true.
Me too.
There's a part of being a musician, I think, for everybody, and you guys might have actually talked about this on the pod before, but we've kind of been training for this our whole lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're sort of used to a certain amount of solidarity and just being kind of in one space or one room for a very long period of time doing things. And for me, it was a good opportunity to forcefully slow down and kind of come back to a point where because I know for myself, just from being a working musician, just like you guys, sometimes when you're working sideman and you're doing a lot of educational work, you just get spread thin. And by having an opportunity like this to pop up, I mean, as much of a silver lining as you can take from it, with what it is, it was a good opportunity to go, well, okay, now I can just focus on things that I always used an excuse for being too busy to do those things.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I know that there's that one side of it where I was probably for the first couple months, I was actually going, man, this is amazing. Just really kind of relishing in that time. On the flip side of it, there were obviously a lot of things that I truly missed and really had taken for granted before that I knew, okay, when we get the opportunity to get back to air quotes normal, I'm really going to savor having that back, and I'm really going to value it and cherish it. One of those things, for example, being
Butterfly kisses.
butterfly kisses. Yeah. One of those things being even just like the gym.
Yeah.
One of those things, just taking it for granted,
Mhm.
that it was always been there, and yeah, I'm going to take the day off or something. And I've been pretty physically active, working out for a long time in my life, just even from years that I was playing a ton of competitive sports when I was a teen. So I've been used to it, but then you can easily kind of go, well, I can take the day off and I can, not worry about going. And then all of a sudden, when everything closes down, you can't work out the same way that you were able to before. So when you're at home doing workouts, you're going, man, this is just not coming together. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't
Yeah.
feel the same. And having to forcefully modify how you do things, it's a bit of a shock. So there's that thing. I missed you guys.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just being able to go out and because I think for me, the gigs were a really good opportunity for me to keep in touch with everybody that I work with. As I kind of stated and mentioned, like I feel like in some regards I'm a recluse. I live a naturally hermit lifestyle.
Same, man.
And doesn't mean that I don't like to talk to my friends or people that I gig and work with and see on a regular day basis, but I have such an appreciation for my own personal time that it's no different than if I haven't seen you guys in months, or I haven't talked to you on the phone for months, or texted for months, or whatever. It's like we can easily drop a line to each other
Yes.
regarding something, and it's like no time has passed.
Mhm.
But I did have moments where I think I was getting a little bit of cabin fever, probably end of May going into June, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
it was starting to get a little
Do you have your
hairy.
friends gotten used to that? Because it took my friends a little bit to get used to that. My high school friends, they're like,
Mhm.
"Man, I haven't seen you in 6 months," and I'm like, "It is what it is, baby.
Yeah.
This is who I am."
Well, I think too, like back when we were working a ton, that's just normal. We have to sacrifice a lot.
Yeah.
Holidays, weekends, where a lot of our friends are working day jobs. Like one of my best friends who, so funny enough, I feel like I've got two really best friends who are almost like the brothers I never had. One of them is your brother,
course.
Will, which we'll talk about that
Yep.
later. But he's a musician, and the other one is a friend of mine named Jeff from we've been friends since high school, and he works pretty much day hours.
Mm.
And when weekends come up and we're gigging, he's free usually, and when the week kind of comes up, and I obviously do a lot of teaching, and I'll be busy during the week as well, but I'm not using my days to work in terms of teaching. I'm usually using my days to practice or prep other things and get ready for other gigs. It's still like you're on off schedules with a lot of people.
Yeah, it makes it so difficult.
Yeah. So it kind of turns into just, well, it's the same situation almost, but the circumstances are different.
Yeah.
So the reasons why you're not getting together and maybe conversing with those friends of yours as much is just that's changed.
Yeah, the things they want to do too, they'll like schedule a thing and it works for everybody except for me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
c'est la vie.
Yeah. It is what it is, and it's just like I said, it's an opportunity to take advantage of some things that like we can just sometimes get caught in our cycles of what we do and how we do them, and maybe like especially being side guys, sometimes we can have aspirations for other things that we go, I'll get to that eventually.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
And this time it was me making a promise to myself, okay, this is most likely in this capacity, knock on wood, not going to happen again, at least in this part of our lifetime, like most likely. You never know, but most likely. I mean, there's the whole adage of this happens probably every 100 years to this capacity and this extent. But thinking on those lines, while it's like, great, like I can take some time off, I can relax a little bit. There's also that side of me that's going, you'll never have as much time off
It's
as you will
stressful
now
for that reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a bit of a balancing point to that, is kind of understanding, okay, like how much is too much time spent doing a lot of that other work, and then asking the question, how are you going to make this work when life gets back to normal? How are you going to be able to balance and juggle those things? And I think I've found a way to kind of do that for myself now, but we won't know until
That's exactly it.
time's going to tell. We won't know until everything goes back
I think
to
we
normal.
should just stop doing this podcast when the world gets back to normal. My favorite way that someone's referred to what it was like, prior to COVID, is Tom Moffat said the before times. In the before times.
The before times. I was at an outdoor social distancing thing for RJ's birthday, actually, this week, and I ran into Dan Mincham, who's a friend of all of ours, great bass player.
Oh yeah.
And he's originally from the UK, although he doesn't speak with an English accent. But he calls the pandemic the panny, which is super British. I feel, and it's awesome. So I want to make that a thing.
The panny.
The panny.
You should make a T-shirt that says "Get down with the panny."
Yeah, exactly.
Get down with the panny.
So you're. Aaron, you're super into fitness. I know this because I'm a friend of yours, and you had brought it up that obviously took for granted going to the gym, all that stuff. Your girlfriend Amber's also a personal trainer. Is that correct?
Yes, she is. So, which it's amazing having, like, we've been together now for almost a year and a half, and like I've been working out for so long, but I feel ever since I've met her, like not to get all mushy and everything,
Hey, please.
but kind of being with the right person, it really makes you realize the things that you need to improve on, and not just as a partner but as a person.
Sure.
And I think having a good partner or somebody that you're with always tends to push you in that right direction. Like, she's never been one to lie to me. She's always been pretty blunt about,
which is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's the best.
And sometimes it's going to hurt hearing a certain thing.
Yes.
But knowing that it's coming from a position of love, like there's truth in that. There's truth. It's no different than having some of your own friends tell you something very blunt and honest.
Yes, that you wouldn't know yourself.
Yeah, in comparison to maybe some of those people that go, well, here's how I really feel about this, that, and the other towards this person, but I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
But she has, like, during this time, like, I've actually started having a little bit of wear and tear on my body over time. Like, I've had some injuries over time that were mostly sports related, but I've also been feeling just some aches and pains and things kind of happening that have made me have to readjust how I work out. So for the longest time, it was mostly bodybuilding type work, and mostly coming from a standpoint of the aesthetic of everything.
Yeah.
And because of those wear and tear injuries just kind of happening, like I'm dealing with a little bit of lower back stuff right now. The way that I've had to work out has had to change, and it's taken somebody like Amber to really make me aware of that and kind of get me over my little stubborn hump of like, well, no, like this is the way that I've always done things, and it always worked, and if I can get back to doing that. And she's had to go like, you need to slow down, you need to come at it from a smarter angle, not like
Yeah.
it becomes more about the quality than the quantity. It
Mm.
becomes more about, less about your like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just go balls to the wall type thing, and
Yep.
and essentially be like, no, like dial it back and think, plan a little bit more, and
Yeah.
take into consideration the things that you've got in front of you, such as little aches, pains, and things like that. Like, I am no spring chicken. I believe I'm the oldest person on this podcast. Actually, you know what?
Actually, yeah.
I might be the oldest guest so far on the podcast.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah. Who,
So-
who
It's
we had
possible.
on that's old?
Yeah.
I'm not going to out anybody. Everybody's 24 in this business. So,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm 24.
Yeah.
I've like never felt like I was 24.
Yeah.
So my question then is like, what have you been doing to stay fit, and like, what should people be doing? I know gyms are opening up again, but I, for one, am not interested in going back with the way things are currently. So like, what can people be doing from home?
I think a big thing that you definitely can't just stay sedentary the entire time. You have to just remain mobile.
Mhm.
I remember hearing something that I have to think about how I would word this, but basically a lot of elderly mortality comes from lack of mobility.
Mm.
So the less active that you naturally are, the more likely you are to actually have your chances of death increase.
Okay.
So in other words, that like if you are just zero mobility and you just sedentary the entire time, your cause of death could be a number of different things, but those chances, drastically increase just based on your sedentary lifestyle versus an active one. So one thing that people can just do is just get up and just even walk.
Mhm.
That was a big part of kind of being inside, having all the blinds closed, or being in my basement woodshedding, and just kind of spending so much time doing that by the time night rolls around, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna just like read a book, or
Yeah.
I'm just gonna do something else and still stay inside. Whereas it would be better to, well, even just go take like an evening walk. So I took my mom out for a couple walks with me around the neighborhood just
Yeah.
to get her moving, because she has a lot of aches and pains herself as well. And just even like getting up in the morning, and one of the first things you should do, even maybe before you eat breakfast, go for a small jog, or
Yeah.
that walk, or a quick run, just something to kind of get you moving and get you going.
Mhm.
Little things like that. I think some people think about all the different exercises that you can do, and just trying to keep a status quo of your own workout conditions and everything that you would have accessible to you in a gym, but trying to make that work at home gets really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So just think simple, just do more active things. Just kind of get up and walk and move, and that is probably going to be better for you than anything else. I would think it's better than just staying sedentary the entire time.
Oh my God.
Just-
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't remember the percentage of people that die after retirement within 5 years. It's something like insane, because they're just used to being like, oh yeah, I have to walk around at work and do things, and they retire and they're like, this is great, and then within 5 years, it's a lot.
Mhm.
A lot of people die,
Mm.
and it's things like falls, or like obviously heart attacks, but falls because your legs don't work as well, or just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Old
One thing
people
that
see
I've been
it.
doing is, after we had that podcast with Sean way back when, Sean from down in Nashville,
yeah.
where he said he starts his, I mean, this guy's a machine. Like, he starts his day every day like 90-minute workout or something. I was like, okay, I can't necessarily do that, but one thing I've incorporated is using the Good Life app, which is actually, I'm sure a lot of different gyms have it or whatever, but it's got all these different training plans in it, where it's it's like 12-15 minutes a day. Like, it's not very much time at all, right? But I'll just make sure that I do one of those every morning, and they're like kind of kicking my ass. Like some of them I can't do, and they're all body weight, no gear needed. There's a lot of like jumping exercises and like plank. You're doing a plank, but you're also doing like another movement. And I've really found that it's activating muscles for me, and like I'm getting sore in spots that I didn't even like realize, you know, I could get sore in from the workouts I was doing when a gym was available, because I would just do the same sort of exercises that everybody does, you know, bench press, squats, whatever, like the main sort of exercises. And then these ones that have you going in all these weird positions and like weird motions are actually really beneficial, I think, just to preventing injury when you're doing day-to-day stuff and you lean over a certain way and you like tweak something. It's my feeling that these exercises are really helpful with that. So I'm glad I've kind of discovered that, although I'm not sure if it's as effective as, you know, actually going to the gym and really rocking
body
it.
weight stuff is a very underrated side of working out. I would even say doing body weight work is great because you can do it every day and not really have to recover as much as if you were lifting a lot heavier weight in the gym, such as things like bench press and everything. Because sometimes when you go in and you want to start to max out and get to a point where you're like, let's say you're benching and you're like, yeah, I'm going to get my max bench at 4 reps, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to do like lat pull downs with double my body weight, or, you know, like just stuff that seems like you're putting on so much load that essentially you're going to feel it the next day. But in a lot of cases you end up doing body weight stuff like just push-ups, and you can angle your push-ups. You can have your feet elevated for like an incline push-up, or you can decline push-up, and you're going to hit different parts of your chest. You can even do, if you can, stuff like handstand push-ups against a wall, which is going to help you activate your shoulders more so than you know, if you weren't doing any shoulder motions. And a lot of those exercises, like, you won't feel them as much the next day, but you'll feel a little more refreshed simply because you've actually gotten a workout in.
Yeah.
Fuck,
I mean, handstand. Al, if you could fire some handstand push-ups out, we'll wait.
Right now on camera. Well, you know, I saw, not to go too deep on fitness and stuff, but actually we haven't really talked about this on this podcast before. I saw a really interesting Joe Rogan clip, and I can't remember who the fellow was that he was talking to, but the basis of the clip was the idea of a recovery day, like the idea of going day on, day off, day on, day off, is actually setting you back in terms of what progress you could attain, right? So like he was saying, if you work out to the point of exhaustion and then the next day you're sore and you have to take a day off, you're losing that next day of being able to work out. Whereas if you work out the first day, just do enough that you're exercising, you're working hard, but you're not totally spent by the end of it. Tomorrow you can wake up, do the same thing. Next day you can wake up, do the same thing. Whereas when you're going to the gym lifting as much as you possibly can, you're gonna be cooked the next day. You're not gonna want to go back, right? So I thought that was really good advice, and I think that like you're saying, these bodyweight exercises aren't gonna destroy you, but they are gonna, you know, if you're doing them every day, they're gonna help you out a lot, I think. Yeah.
And being able to like cycle body parts too. Like I used to do the what is called the bro split.
Oh yeah.
Which is and I like, and Al knows this too, because I don't know if you remember way back when we were playing up in Dryden, and
yeah, man,
we went to the gym, man, and we were working out there and doing our stuff. But like back in those days too, like I was doing the bro split, which is kind of like you do one body part and you hit it super hard per day, and you're gonna feel that soreness. But at least when I was doing that, like I would be going on to another body part, so I would never sort of have that day off, so I could go 6 days a week.
Sure.
And maybe that 7th day is maybe a little tiny bit of something, like just like a jog or whatever it is, or even if I was going to take that day off, that was fine. But the downside of that is that what happens, you start to get you've hit that body part so hard that it's probably going to maybe take a few days for you to rest and recuperate there, but then you still have an additional 3 or 4 days before you're going to hit it again, and now you've kind of wasted the amount of time to kind of like develop that more. So it's still now resting too much. So sometimes when you go do body weight stuff, like obviously you don't have to rest in between as much, or when you're actually going back into the gym and you're maybe formulating a little bit closer to a push day versus a pull day. So maybe like a chest and shoulder day. Like for example, I went in and I was doing mostly like upper chest, upper middle chest, like those types of presses, incline press and a flat bench and a cable fly plus some shoulder and upright row variations. So that's a little bit of a push day, whereas then the next day is probably going to be maybe some sort of a pull day with back and biceps. And then the day after that, maybe we're going to take as an active rest day. So we're not lifting any weight, but we're going to do steady heart rate cardio for 30 to 45 minutes. And then that way I've had at least a little bit of muscle rest and recuperation, but it's not like I'm not doing anything else. So active rest is great because you're still going to be doing some sort of a workout. And because not everything is based on muscle, right? There's cardiovascular. There's even just kind of taking stress off your joints in certain parts of your body, especially if you have aches and pains. But kind of managing it and being able to organize it in a way where you're never not doing anything, like you're at least doing something.
Sure.
Which is good.
Steroids too. Those help. You know,
old juice.
Get some juice. What do they call it? Gear.
Right? Yeah.
That, or I think like Tren is one of the big ones that had come around.
So Will, when he was not when he was first working out, but he was working out for a little bit, and he went to there's this wasn't a chain supplement store. It was over, on Brock Street.
One of the ones that's closed down now.
Yes, yeah. And he was just chatting with the guys like, oh yeah, I want to get these shoes, and can I get this protein powder? And he'd went a few times, and the guy just sort of volunteered. He's like, yo, I could get you gear if you want.
Actually, another thing you got to watch out for, and it's still kind of prevalent today. If you ever look at pre-workout supplements,
they're crazy.
Those crazy, are so bad for you.
It's also, you notice how they'll cycle out a product after a couple years because the FDA in the States has finally caught up to it. So a lot of these things they can flood the market with. And like there's some of it that will stay around, like Eno Explode is still around. Yeah. It's still around, but it's just not as popular as it was before. But like I remember getting some pre-workout that it like actually has like the
HGH.
It's got it's got the like basically it's amphetamine.
Oh yeah.
So
wasn't there one that was like a few chemicals away from meth?
Well, it pretty much is that. It's just a variation of it. It's sort of looking at like how morphine and heroin are kind of like they're cousins to each other.
Opioids.
They're opioids. So like amphetamine is the same thing. Which there's a podcast I listened to, a true crime podcast where they actually talk about how. Oh man, we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but they were talking about how like the for a long time has basically been run by figures in political society that have been addicted to meth, essentially.
Oh, wow.
Like JFK.
Hitler was really into meth. Yeah.
Wow.
But some of that pre-workout stuff though, like when you like, it wasn't like I was going out looking for it, but the market is so flooded with it, especially in the States, that you could easily grab stuff and start taking it and be like, oh man, this stuff I could lift a house, and then go back to some of the safe stuff and go, oh, I see the difference. Like actually, it's if you ever look at baseball players in like the Major League Baseball that get the 50 game suspensions, it's usually not steroids they're getting suspended for. It's over the counter pre-workout supplements and fat cutters
shit.
That just happen to contain.
They're basically full of amphetamines, which is in the same class as methamphetamine, basically, and then they just get caught for that, and they go, "Oh, I didn't read the label."
Yeah,
that's pretty much what happens. So
well, they make enough money that they should probably just read the label,
Yeah,
but
they buy a personal trainer or
have somebody on staff who can you know,
Yeah, Hitler was into meth.
screen that stuff for you.
I don't know if it was like meth,
Yeah.
but like I was
wouldn't
listening
know.
to I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was that hardcore history podcast.
Oh
It
yeah,
was
it's a
like
great one.
Blitzkrieg.
Mhm.
And so that was fueled by meth.
Yeah.
So what it was Germany had this like supplement that was an amphetamine, and they didn't know it was bad for you back then, and it was just supposed to like help you wake up and work harder and shit like that.
Mm.
It was very common. And when they were doing their Blitzkrieg thing and sort of taking over the country, you know, soldiers would be like fighting for 4 days straight without sleeping because they were just hopped up on meth.
Wow.
And so Hitler, I think, dove into that, and you know.
I did not
But to
know
reel
that.
this back to music, I mean, yeah, for any drummer out there, don't take any of these pre-workout supplements that have amphetamine in it because it'll really mess with your time.
There you go. There you go.
Man, we're playing at like 150, but it feels like
It'd be fun to do a podcast on these.
I don't mess around with any of that pre or post workout. I don't know. I stopped.
I
I
haven't
stopped.
taken it in a very long time.
I stopped bothering with it. I mean, the protein powder thing, I think it was a bit of a, I don't know. I thought it was a bit of a placebo kind of thing. I don't know if it really did anything. But at least for me, anyway.
People think about protein powders as being this like superfood thing where it's like, yeah, it's gonna get me jacked. It's like, no, the whole purpose for the protein powder is you're just getting quick protein that you can have instantly that your body needs. So it's no different like after you work out and maybe you haven't eaten for a while, your body's a sponge and it's dry. So what happens when you put water on a sponge? It just soaks it all up. So the quicker you can get it into your body, the better. I don't think it's something that you should be having probably like 3 times a day as like meal replacements.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah,
that's the toilet's for.
Yeah. Man, I remember you walking around with bags of that. I have fond memories of us going. I think it was Big Texas. Yes. And you're at the back of your back of the car. Oh man, I gotta get this Soylent in.
This white powder that I'm pouring into a bottle, just hoping the bouncers don't like misconstrue things. To be honest, I like if I was gigging again a bunch and like, yeah, I think I would be doing Soylent. I just don't know if it's actually bad for you. I know it's technically not considered a meal replacement now. That's why they stopped it.
Yeah.
It doesn't meet the requirements to be a meal replacement.
Yeah, it's probably just verbiage.
Yeah.
That's
they
usually
walked that
like,
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't want to get any like tumors fucking 30 years from now. You know what I mean? In my butt.
Yeah. Well,
that's where they show up.
Red meat will do that to you too. Hey, something's gonna get you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to be alive this long anyways, man. I've been alive for fucking 4 or 5 extra years than I intended.
So one of the things that you've been working on, Aaron, over the course of the panty, you've really stepped up a bunch, and you've been kind enough to actually include some of my music in it, is your Instagram and YouTube video channel. You do song covers, you do mini lessons, you do sort of technique-based videos. Can you talk a little bit about the channel and how you started, how you built it?
Sure. So this is kind of what I was alluding to without actually saying it right off the top. But when the pandemic happened and quarantine came about, I knew that I had a lot of time on my hands to then take and obviously put it into a lot of projects that I wanted to do. And for years, for a very, very long time, I've wanted to do more online lesson video work. And again, life just gets in the way, and gigging gets in the way, and teaching gets in the way, and stuff happens, and you just never seem to kind of pull the trigger on it. And this was me making a promise to myself that no matter what, like no matter how bare bones it might seem, no matter how because there are trolls out there and there are different people that will
you're
always
afraid someone's gonna be like, ugh, the lighting in this video.
Oh yeah. Or just little things like I'm doing all the videos off of my iPhone basically because I just don't have
iPhones look great.
Oh, it's great. Little things will happen where the audio will like when you're playing drums and the drum sound is coming through and then maybe you stop and there's still resonance happening and then you talk and it kind of drops the volume on your voice and then it's got to pick it back up. I had one guy on Facebook through a Facebook group called the Yamaha Drum Closet. I couldn't tell whether or not he was saying talk less or talk more because he was going, oh, like I can't hear you know, like make sure you check when you put your volume up and this and the other. Shut up and play. And I'm like, so you're telling me you don't want me to talk, but then, or like you want me to talk, but you don't. I don't
I
get it.
love the internet, man.
Yeah, it's
So
just like there's
much.
no. It's like learn to articulate
Yeah.
what you mean. So yeah, but but for me it's about consistency, and it's just been about like just content, just putting it out. And the only way that you can learn how to do this stuff better is by just doing it.
Yep.
No matter what. So I made that promise to myself back when back in about, it was around March, like I think right like maybe that second week in the pandemic. And I just kind of flooded my YouTube channel with some stuff, and then I started doing it every week. So I do a weekly lesson video every Tuesday. On top of that, I've also been doing so now every Friday, and I just released because today's a Friday, I did part 6 on my or no, sorry, I think it's part 5. Part 5 came out today of a book that a lot of jazz guys work on when we're developing coordinated independence. Called Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer by Jim Chapin.
I've seen that.
Oh,
Is that the old
yeah.
looking book that you have?
Yeah, super old one. So I
I
started
learned out
doing
of that
that,
book
and
for a bit.
yeah, and the reason that I started doing this book is because I have quite a few students that are working on this, but because we're not doing in-person lessons and a lot of it's online and I can't really play in real time with them, I wanted to give them a representation of it that they could always go back and watch. So then that way, when we did have our lessons, they might either have questions about it, or they might also say, oh yeah, like it came through so much more clear on the idea of what this was because
Yeah.
I was watching you play. And if, you know, kind of even going back to the whole thing with my work with Yamaha, which we'll probably talk about at some point today, but we kind of pride how we do our education systems based off of model performance. So that's really what these videos are for. They're for a model performance. So really I'm trying to represent, okay, here's the exercise, or here's how it's going to go. And then I can sort of break things down within the lesson for them. So in other words, they can go watch the video beforehand, check things out. I do kind of talk a little bit about what's maybe happening in each video, but for the most part, I'm just basically getting people to watch the exercises. And then in our lesson, we can break those things down. But that idea of model performance is just really what these videos are all about. And a lot of my interest in doing this really came from like when I was in high school. I was a big Dream Theater fan halfway through high school, and one of my favorite DVDs that I ever kind of watched was it was a Liquid Drum Experiment DVD with Mike Portnoy, and that was kind of like one of my first forays into educational music DVD stuff. And I always liked, like, I started getting into Steve Smith did a bunch of them. There have obviously been ones from way before that, like Dave Weckl and Steve Gadd have had videos for since like the 80s. Thomas Lang, Marco Miniman, a lot of these really heavy sort of like technical drummers, but at the same time just drummers that basically have some sort of educational mission statement. And a lot of it is performance based, but then they're also kind of breaking down concepts. And that has always been a big thing for me outside of performing, has been this sort of educational approach. Kind of like I started doing actual in-person clinic work a few years ago, and obviously with everything happening now, that hasn't been able to come to fruition. In fact, I had a couple of clinics that I was supposed to do this summer that got canceled.
That sucks.
So, but that's kind of where that comes from. My love of education really came from watching these drummers breaking down like the records that I was listening to, and then talking about concepts that led to them creating these parts or being able to play these different things. So I've wanted to do that for a very long time, and I finally have started to do that now for the last 5 months.
Fucking COVID making my dreams come true.
So it's the silver lining, man. It's that.
That's exactly.
Yeah, man. And so your goal with these the channel, like you were sort of alluding to this before we started recording, the goal, you said you weren't really looking at the numbers as much in terms of like the subscribes and all that kind of stuff.
I'm not gonna lie and say that doesn't matter to me. When I saw that it's like, oh, it only takes like a minimum of 1,000 followers to kind of get you into that ballpark of monetization.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's not something that has been like a lofty goal of mine, is to try to, push the YouTube to its fullest extent and be like, this is what I want to make my day job. Because at the end of the day, I love performing and I love playing
Yeah.
like with you guys whenever we've done gigs. I was actually on the way over here when I was driving over to Mike's. I was thinking of one of the last gigs that we did together was Manitoulin with Beverly Mahood.
That was such a good time.
Yeah, that was a great show.
There are certain gigs that I don't miss, which is horrible to say, and I'm obviously not going to say their names.
Yeah.
I mean, but that was not one of them. Like, that was one of those gigs that, like, just driving up there with a Holt was a blast. And then, we played our gig and we had a few beers afterwards, and then stayed at a nice hotel and then drove back. It was the best.
It was a good, actually, and we had like a good lunch that day too in town.
Yes, we did.
So, I mean, these are the aspects that you're not going to get sitting in your home studio doing videos all the time. I think there's an element of that you're going to miss. And like for myself, I'm easily, I don't know if maybe it's maybe I was just not diagnosed properly when I was a kid, and I feel like maybe I've got a certain amount of OCD. But I like even, and I'll come back to the video stuff, I promise, but this is kind of related. When I started doing when I started going to Humber and studying there, I was exposed to so many different things that I never got when I was just doing music in high school. And even from the videos and CDs and DVDs and everything that I'd watch and listen to, when I got to Humber, I just really, like, I studied my first year there with Mark Kelso. He was only doing the private lesson portion. He wasn't the head of the department yet. So Roger Flock was the head of our department.
Don't know who that is.
And not a lot of people enjoyed having lessons with Roger, but I did, because it was a different perspective. I think people didn't enjoy having lessons with him or being in masterclass with him, because it was so the opposite of everything that we thought that we wanted to be there for. So we were learning a lot about orchestral percussion. We were learning a lot about snare drum. We were learning a lot of listening. And funny enough, I feel like those were attributes of those master classes that helped me kind of have an antithesis to everything else, because I was easily getting all my drum kit material when I was studying with Mark in private lessons. And then I'd go off and we'd do improv class, and I'd be able to play time behind a lot of guys, or same with the theory playing tests. I was playing time behind a lot of people doing their tests, and then ensemble. So that class was a good exposure to me to see a lot of other things outside of just like playing drum kit only. And I have a piano background too, so it was maybe easier for me to gravitate towards playing mallet percussion, because a lot of the guys that were drummers there, maybe like 18 out of the 20 of us, they'd never touched a keyboard instrument at all. So maybe I just found it easier to do all that, because I've been doing it in high school and beyond, like before that. But when I studied with Mark, he was mostly trying to, go, okay, we're going to reel you in and we're going to work on your groove, and we're going to try to like actually give you feel. Because I feel like I just being like a rock kid from Ajax, like that's all I was pretty much used to kind of playing. I did have like a decent amount of jazz experience playing in high school big band, but in relation to everything else going on at the school, it's nothing.
Sure.
It's like, you think you know jazz, it's not jazz. But
let's talk to Larnell.
yeah. But then Mark was playing with Holly Cole at the time. So there were periods where he's like, okay, I've got to go, like I'm going to Europe for 2 weeks on a tour, or hey, I've got to go do this set of shows for 2 weeks with her here. So during that first year, I studied with Mark, and I got a lot of great stuff from him. And he's pretty versatile of a drummer himself, obviously. So I was getting a lot of this, a lot of these different understandings of styles and everything from him. But I remember having 2 weeks with Rick Lazar, who he's a percussionist, and he runs a band called Montuno Police that Mark actually plays in. So he's very much into Brazilian music and Cuban music, and he taught me about like Brazilian phrasing, which was something I would have never got if I had never gotten to school.
Sure.
So understanding how that phrasing worked, it was like, oh, like you can. It's this rhythmic tension that's created within the music. It's he called it the tumaraka. So like tumaraka, 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 tu. So it's a feel. You can't read it. So
Sure.
it's
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, it's like really when you look at it on paper, it's 16th notes and you're playing the first and last 16th. So that would be like but it's like no, that's not it. Like he used to say to me,
Sure.
so you're not getting it. You're not getting it because you can't just get it.
Yeah. You can't.
Yeah,
You couldn't like
especially being a white kid from the
write
suburbs.
it down
You can't
in
just
a
get it.
manual and read it 100 years from now. And
Yep.
go like, oh, it's that. It's I kind of get that with Gaelic music. There's some stuff in Gaelic music with the fiddle players. I'm like, I don't really know what you're doing there.
Yeah, like
buddy.
phrasing is a thing. Like if you learn a language, you can learn the language really fluently, but people are going to be able to tell, nah, you're not from that area. Or when you go to different, like people will learn English. Or actually, it's funny. I remember seeing like a book, and it was literally written out like learn Brazilian Portuguese because it's not the same Portuguese. Or even even look at us with English. You have somebody that might learn English here, and then okay, send them to Australia
Yeah.
and see how they fare with that, right? Because there's more to it than the language itself. There's the dialect. But anyway, like this was an exposure I had studying with Mark, and then getting to study for like a little bit with Rick, and then I had some lessons with Ted Warren, who was teaching there at the time.
Oh, he's
And,
great.
yeah, and so and then Don Vickery came in, and he's more of like a very traditional old school jazz guy. And then also seeing a lot of the guys that would come through like and do clinic work and everything. Like we had Billy Hart come in my third year at school. I got to
Related to Bret Hart?
no, too bad. That's too bad. But he Billy Hart, he used to play with Miles back in the 70s. He came in and he did clinic work with us. We had oh, why am I drawing a blank on the name right now? Oh, Dan Weiss. We had Dan Weiss come in a lot. Pretty much like yearly, he would come in from New York and do a set of clinics with us. And it's funny, like he's a big fan of Meshuggah, but he's a straight ahead jazz guy. And at the same time, he has studied tabla, so he incorporates Indian rhythms. It's phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
But kind of going to school and having a lot of these different, like this exposure to stuff I would have never have gotten, I started kind of falling in love with music on a whole different level than just like getting a gig, which is probably why I don't feel like I have like a main gig to this day, because I have so much enjoyment getting called to do so many different things. And I alluded to this before we started about it. It's kind of like being the journeyman goalie in the NHL, where it's like he's just playing backup with like a different team every year, but he becomes an integral part to that team, and he sort of bounces around. Or even better, it's kind of like whenever you're watching movies and TV shows, and you always see this one actor pop up. You can't put a name together. You're just like, oh, it's that guy. Oh, it's that guy.
Yeah.
I feel like I've become that guy.
Yeah.
And it's all come out of a love for every opportunity to play different types of music that have come up. So same with education and performance. I don't think I could just sit in my basement and do YouTube videos the whole time, because I would have an itch to be like, man, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Versus also kind of like sometimes I feel burnt out when I do live performances a lot.
Me too.
And I used to do a ton of theater pit work for a long time. And that's actually where I really started to feel that type of feeling come about. I was just so like the first week of the performance, you've been rehearsing and you've been doing all the dress rehearsals and the like the press shows, and then you do the show, and it's good like the first week. And then the second week, I'm pretty familiar with the book now. So, but we're still kind of keeping on top of everything. Third week, you're like buried your face in a book, or you're like, where all the cues are coming from. It's like that episode of Family Guy where like Brian's sitting on the couch and he's watching that. I forget. It's like the behind the music with Poison or something. And you just see Brian just like mouthing the words to the thing, because he's watched it 17 times.
Yeah.
That is probably the best example I can use for long-standing pit shows, because they just tend to be, you already know what's coming down the pipeline. You already know where all the hits are. It's just
hit music seems to pay. I've never done it because my reading is actually okay, but it's not.
like the really high end pit stuff definitely
great.
does, but like I like the ones that we were doing, like I've only done ever one pit
Yeah,
job,
yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't even really a pit job. Like we were on stage for it, but that show was really interesting. Actually, it was with Will. We were in Petrolia,
Oh,
the Petrolia
yeah,
gig,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But some of the other pit stuff, like I started getting my pit work experience playing in the Oshawa Little Theater, way up there. So that's like Simcoe and Taunton.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like right
yeah,
around
yeah. I
there.
think I might have went to go see.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Wouldn't
think
be
you were.
surprised.
Yeah,
But I started doing that work because a lot of retired high school teachers that were doing music in the area, they were doing the pit shows, but then they'd be like, like give the experience to this kid. And I was like
yeah, yeah.
19, 20 at the time, and I'd go and I'd do the shows for like $25 a show, like
Yeah,
super
yeah.
not good money.
Yeah.
But after a while, like I haven't really done a lot of pit work since, just simply based on the fact that I didn't want to get caught in this cycle of doing the same thing every time.
Yeah.
So doing the video work is great because it's given me an ability to go, okay, like we're going to tackle something totally different that we haven't done before and we haven't done on like a level of like consistency. But now also challenging myself to be like, okay, when life goes back to normal, let's see if you can keep it up,
Yes.
and being able to balance that out with still performing, because I don't want that to stop if it doesn't have to.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
And do you find that you're reaching more students and accruing new students through the video work that you're doing?
I have been. So one of the things with the lesson stuff, like the way I always pitch it to anybody is like the videos are always free because it's on YouTube, it's public, it's there. But what I'll do for every video, especially my Tuesday lesson video work, is I'll do a lesson sheet or a PDF that goes along with it.
Yeah.
So there are some of those students where even if I'm doing the performance in the video and I'm breaking it down, there are some of them that like if you can get it just by watching it and listening to it and you think you figured it out, great, awesome, like you've got the stuff. But there are some students who are watching it, and I try to not I try not to do it too quick in some cases, because I want them to be able to absorb it, and I want that, like, it's not just about the performance. It's not just about like, ooh, look how flashy I can play. Like I know I've got chops, but I'm not gonna, like, that's not a good lesson to just be like,
yes. It's not the point of the video,
okay, now your turn. It's just that's not how it works. But I'll play like do the performance aspect of it, and then I'll break it down in certain spots, or I'll do it slower. And if there are some students that can't really understand how, like, what's happening, or they just kind of can't suss it out, I have an available PDF for them to purchase if they want. And it's, depending on the lesson, it could be like 3 to 5 pages, or I've got some that are like 10 pages long. So for like basically $3 US, you're getting a large value of something that
Yes.
I would do in a whole lesson, which would normally be anywhere between like $35-$40 or something.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I give that as an option to some people. That's also why I've got the Patreon going on, so that if you want, you can just subscribe and do like for $10 a month, I can get access to every single lesson PDF there is.
Sure.
But I've had some people, like I just recently had somebody from Manila in the Philippines go, hey man, like I saw these ones you did with the syncopation book, these 5 videos. I really want those ones. Like, how much are they?
Yeah.
So I'd be like, oh cool, yeah, I'll sell them to him and somebody else in Italy and somebody in the UK and a whole bunch of people in the US. Like the YouTube analytics are interesting, because I'll sometimes go, like, let's explore this. And I think about like 95, or no, it's not 95%, but it's like high 90s, or somewhere in the 90% range of my video watching by country has been the US. So
Really?
yeah, so a lot of it has just been people in the US, and part of it is because people, like, when I put this stuff, I'll always put it on YouTube, but I'll always take that video and put it up on Facebook and mostly Instagram. Some days I just can't be bothered with editing it, so I'll maybe only, and I don't want to flood it too much, but I'll maybe go, yeah, like this new video's out, or I'll at least put it in my story. And some people that will, like some drummers that will see that, they'll go to the link for the YouTube and they'll check it out. And yeah, essentially I'll just get random emails from people just asking for certain
For
ones.
shit.
Like one guy actually was like, I want every PDF that you've done since the beginning when you first started this stuff. So it was like 22 videos. So I'm like,
Sweet.
okay, and I like charged him for it, and he paid it, and I sent the stuff out, which
Yep.
is great.
I mean, that would be great eventually if you could get it to the point where you have an online sort of store, so you don't even have to deal with the transaction. It's just money coming in.
Well, funny enough, this has been so another thing I've always wanted to do is
Webcam modeling, webcam shows,
OnlyFans. No,
OnlyFans. I joked about that. I think a podcast
That's
ago.
starting to come up every week now. OnlyFans.
I didn't know what that was, but somebody told me about it. And I'm fascinated. See, they pitched it to me, and it wasn't what I thought it was. Though they're like, "Yeah, these famous people just have OnlyFans," and I'm like, "These people aren't famous.
No.
People I've seen."
It's so greasy though.
It's the greasiest thing ever.
Yeah. It's
but like when
it's
you
the
had
oldest
Dave,
profession.
you had Dave Kirby on the show, and I loved it because I've wanted to do a book myself as well, like an actual course or an actual book. Doing a book itself, it takes a really long time. I've been writing material for 5 years on stuff, but it's always trying to find a way to formulate it. And when you do a book, it's also finding a way to kind of thematically put it together. So that's been a challenge myself, but I'm hoping that, well, okay, I've had a lot of people that have been gravitating towards purchasing the PDF material. Okay, so if I'm able to condense a lot of that and reformulate it into a way where I can sell it as a product, like similar to like a guy like Rick Beato does that with his stuff on YouTube as well, right?
Somebody was like, "Oh, like are they monetizing this thing online?" And I'm like, everything online is leading towards a monetizing thing. So that's great if you could do that. It's also too, if you're doing your clinics and you've gone in with Mom McQuaid and you're like, "Yo, could you like hold this book in all your stores?" It's like, that's a lot of money.
I mean, it's just always trying to find like those alternate sources of income, but at the same time, it's stuff that it's not just about the job. It's about like, I've got a very, very much of like a scientific brain, I think, where I'm always and a very algorithmic way of thinking. So a lot of my material is always trying to find like, okay, what's an alternate way to do this thing or this, or like, am I leaving out an option of something else? So that's why formulating it as a book just seems like an automatic process, or just something that's like, like it's a no-brainer. So I'd love to see if I can get it to that point, but seeing like just getting people to go to the channel, and if they like it, and I try to be no nonsense about my stuff. The hard part with YouTube right now is that it's so much about the performance aspect. I do have a bit of an axe to grind with some of these videos that will get put out, where it's like, here's a lick, no context, just a thing.
Sure, yeah.
And it's just like, cool, like you're learning a lick, but why don't I give you the vocabulary to learn more than just the one lick? It's no different than like telling
Teach
your
a man to
buddy
fish.
or like we had this one guy from oh god, where was he from? He was from like Abu Dhabi, so like the United Arab Emirates, when we were in elementary school, and people would be like, "Yo, say something in Arabic." Say something in Arabic, and it would be this like that's the that's a representation of the times. But it was so much more about this just entertaining thing, where like he could just say this thing, or like teach me how to say like a swear word in your language. But that doesn't tell you how the language works, and it doesn't tell you about like the language itself, and you're never going to really learn that language until you engross yourself in kind of more than just the one phrase. That's
super appealing to me. I don't know if I know any just like licks. I do, but like that never appealed to me. Just to like learn a lick, it's like, well, like I want to be able to like do the thing he's doing, but all over the place.
I think a big part of that is so for me, I started approaching, like, one thing I've been trying to approach, and I haven't really done a full video on this yet, but it's approaching taking a phrase and being able to shift it. So, and this is something, it's not new, but a lot of the time it's so easy to do it with simple phrases. So even like a 3 triplet quarter note hit, like 1 and a 2.
Sure.
But can you do that on every shift? Like 1, 2 and a 3, 1, 2, 3 and a 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 and a 1. Like being able to kind of move it in different ways. But taking like a pattern that somebody like if I listen to a certain phrase that I've seen Vinny play, my Vinny Colaiuta, for those who don't know who I'm
For the
talking
unborn, for the layman.
about. For the people who don't know me
That's
well.
we were saying this at the beginning. The other things I know about you are you love Vinny Colaiuta, Krispy Kremes, and Greg Plitt.
Yes, that's
R.I.P.
pretty much it. Yeah, rest in peace. And I think a lot of people will also think that I love Vinny simply because of the chops.
Yeah.
I don't. It's kind of what I alluded to before. It's the level of versatility,
Yeah.
and like the guy has been on so much stuff that you haven't realized listening to. Like it's just going back into his discography is amazing, but then realizing like, oh, he did, like, I think he did the latest like DC movie. Like he did some of the
Really?
stuff in the latest DC
Yeah.
movie.
So he's not Vinny on everything too.
No,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
thing. Like
yeah.
that's how much of a chameleon he is, and I've
Yeah.
always appreciated that from a guy like him, because everybody just sees the chops and just automatically will want to gravitate towards all of that. But the guy can just lay the groove down, like
Yeah.
like the Elf theme song, the show Elf. That's Vinny. To get it in. Like it's just, that's him, and he's not throwing any chops at all. He's just grooving hard on it.
Yeah.
Or even like If I Ever Lose My Faith in You by Sting, that's him on that.
Sure, yeah,
He's
yeah.
on the whole album, but that one single track, that's him. Like it's just it's cool because there's a whole different side to that. But if I listen to something that he's done, I want to take it and dismantle it and go, okay, how can I
Yeah.
make that my own? How can I move it around?
Yep.
How can I do this with that?
Yeah.
So it's more organic too, because I
Yeah.
find whenever I do a lick, it seems forced. It's like, okay, here comes the like
Yeah.
here comes the sequence. But if
And it
it's,
will always be in the initial stage.
yes,
But part of like that process of taking it and maneuvering it is doing things
that's
like,
exactly
okay,
it.
what if I started on one? What if I started on
Yes.
the and looking at the base subdivisions and then going, well, what if I, instead of doing right left, I went left right here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's kind of cool. It's a little tougher this
And
way.
then you find
but
things you can't do, and you're like, oh, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like that's one thing that I've noticed. I look back like 5 years ago, and I'm like, oh, that lick that I was trying to get into my playing is in my playing.
There you
You
go.
know, it's there. I've done it.
Because then after you hit a certain while of playing something and kind of forcibly putting it in your practice, it will eventually be absorbed a la osmosis, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just naturally start to realize like the ways that you can kind of finagle it in there, but at the same time, it's ingrained in you now. It's no longer like, think of it again, going back to the language thing. Think of it no different than words that you didn't understand when you were a kid versus the level of vocabulary that we all probably have now.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Lost. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of soloists, this is definitely a guitar thing, but I think some of the coolest drum solos too, it's like that's what a lot of great soloists will do, is they'll take an idea and then they'll play that same idea again with some variation, and then they'll play it again and maybe shift it a little bit in terms of time and phrasing, and then they'll play it again, you know what I mean? And like one guitarist that comes to mind that does that for me is John Frusciante from Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like a lot of those solos is just like one idea that he just stretches and manipulates and varies on. And that's what keeps a solo interesting, because there's some continuity there. You're not just going like lick 1 into lick 2 into lick 3 into lick 4 into lick 5, and it's just like that could be cool too. But like when you have that continuity there, the listener can appreciate, like, he went shida-da-da, and then he went shida-da-da-da-da-da, shida-da-da, shida-da-da-da-da, shida-da-da-da-da-da. You know, it's just like, that's cool. There's a theme to that. I get what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's just like you said, it's that one figure with a little bit of, you're displacing it or you're adding a note to it or whatever. That's a really cool way to approach soloing, as well as obviously just trying to sort of get a mastery over the idea in your own practicing. Can you talk about a bit of
Teach a Man to Fish?
Yeah, exactly.
That should be the name
Teach
of
a
your
man to
book.
fish.
Or musical storytelling without lyrics.
You can lead a horse to water, but it'll never learn how to fish, or something.
There we go.
It's just totally
Hey,
Totally
like a
miss
tree
it.
and get out of here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So talk a bit about your relationship with Yamaha and how you got to be a clinician for them.
Pardon me. So back in, I went to Humber between 2003 and 2007, and by that time, Mark Kelso eventually did become the head of the program. So that was in my third year, so around 2005. And when I was getting ready to graduate, I did 4 years of my program. We didn't have the same degree I think you guys had, but we had basically somewhat of a unofficial version of it that was kind of the precursor to what you guys eventually would
Sure.
have. But I stuck it out for 4 years, even though I had my diploma. I stuck it out for 4 years because like for me personally, I needed school, and I really felt that I got the most bang for my buck out of there. That being said, I was ready to leave when I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready to go work now.
Yeah.
And around that time, this is maybe a couple years before, or a couple months before um, the end of that final year, Mark Kelso came to me and he asked me if I was interested in getting a teaching position through the Yamaha school. And I was like, Yamaha school? I'd never heard of this before.
Yeah.
And their school was up in North York, so it was just across from Mel Lastman Square in North York at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
And he asked me if I wanted to do it because they had been asking him about running the program, but he's like, well, I've now got the head teaching job at Humber, so there's no way I can kind of do that at the same time. And I've never asked him why he thought of me, but I know that's the first thing he said. He's like, yeah, actually, when they asked me about this, I thought of you, so I was wondering if you maybe wanted to go.
It's maybe the way your mind works.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because I even remember too, like that year. So I studied with Mark in first year when he was only doing private lessons. But when I was doing solo performance, I opted to do it in my fourth year, which meant that you study with the head of the department for that
Okay.
one. So I kind of had Mark going in, and then I had Mark going out. And so when we would do like lessons, it was more so bouncing back and forth of ideas. So maybe that's where that came from. But bottom line, he asked me if I wanted to do it. I said yes. So he sent me over for an audition with them. I did the audition and I got the job. And that was in summer 2007. And that September I started teaching at their school. And their school is really interesting because it's mostly geared towards trying to do group classes. So essentially, when you're doing classes of anywhere between like 2 to 5 or 2 to 6 students, it kind of reminded me of doing masterclass with like first and second year at Humber. And now you're just on the flip side of it. You're on the other end of it. You're
Yes.
teaching the class. So from there, and we obviously do a lot of private lesson work as well. And that job essentially started getting me because they have a curriculum. They have their own curriculum, and the Yamaha curriculum is different per instrument, obviously.
Yeah, they have a really cool thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the drums fall under what they call the PMC, which is the Popular Music Course banner. And so with that, basically what you have to do is you have to in order to be a teacher through Yamaha, you have to train. There's a 2-day training course with it, and you train to become a teacher. You get a diploma or a certificate for it. And so I did that, obviously, going in as well. I did my audition, I think, in July. I got notified, I think, a couple weeks later that they were like, yep, you've got the job. And then at the end of August, I had to do a training seminar course. And the guy who was running that course was a guitar player named Tom Duffin, who he was teaching at the school, but he was also working through a lot of their guitar programs and popular music course programs through the Yamaha head office, which is over in Scarborough. So every time you pass it on the 401, it's just before you hit.
Okay. Yeah.
The big,
Yeah.
the
I
big.
wondered where that building was. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's right there on the north side of the 401 between Markham and McCowan. So he trained me how to do the program. So and we have a little bit of a methodology. Like I mentioned, we like to try to do model performance. We base a lot of what we do on model performance. So even though we have a book, or we have multiple books per instrument and level, the idea is that it's not all about the reading. It's about trying to come across from a standpoint of just, I guess, in layman's terms, like just common sense. So we use things like call and response, model performance. When we're working in group classes, especially with younger kids, we like to use something called like pure pleasure, which is essentially like an idea of peer pressure, but you're using it in a group form. So in other words,
okay.
if you've got a student who is able to play something, you want your model performance to also give the student who's maybe not as well adversed on that part a better chance of being able to play it. But if you also use an example of one of the kids in the class, so I might have like 5 kids in the class, and let's say little Timmy over here is doing it really well, and little Johnny over here is not doing it so well. I go, little Timmy, like, do you mind showing the class how to play that one section? And a lot of the kids who have a harder time maybe getting some of those parts down will see their other peers in the class kind of playing that part and go, oh man, I want to be able to do that too.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So I really started to get like I really bought into it because it's a great system for teaching not only like kids but for every age group essentially in a lot of these settings. And from there, like a couple years in, Tom said to me, so like you're the drummer here, like I'm the only one who teaches at the Yamaha school for drums.
Mm-hmm.
So he told me at the time, he's like, so I think you should start taking over the drum training instead of me. So basically, so it's kind of a battlefield promotion. He essentially didn't want to do the drum portion of it anymore. He was just going to focus on guitar and string instruments. So I started training the teachers how to do this program. So that means in Canada, anybody who teaches the Yamaha drum course, they have to go through me first.
That's super cool.
So
Nice.
yeah, so in the beginning part of September, usually every year they're sending me out. Like we've got a lot of teachers in Calgary and Vancouver who teach this material. So they'll send me out there for about a week, like maybe a couple days in Calgary, a couple days in Vancouver. And this year, still making me go. So early September, I got to go out to Vancouver to do 2 days of work out there.
I screw it. I mean, flying
Might
ain't
as well.
that dangerous. You know?
Yeah. So I'll stay in my hotel room the whole time anyway. So
Oh, whatever. Oh, I guess maybe you have to. Yeah.
yeah, which is fine. Like I've been doing this now like pretty much every year. We do it at least once, and sometimes they'll send me out a second time because we also do drum exams, which
Okay.
is a big thing. Like nobody else really does that a lot. But we'll do drum exams, and now I'm also a drum examiner, so I
Nice.
have to examine the students of the teachers that I train how to do the material. But my title while doing that is essentially a Yamaha education clinician. So based on that idea, like it was me kind of coming up through the ranks, and I feel really I'm not a huge fan of this term, but I feel blessed to have had this opportunity. So blessed, yo.
Yeah.
I do actually feel like really lucky that I've had the opportunity to kind of go into this journey with the Yamaha Corporation and Yamaha Education, because it's this idea that education, and like especially how a lot of us have experienced teaching private lessons for so long, it's just you sit in a room for a half hour with somebody, you teach them stuff, and then they leave and next.
Yeah.
It's this constant
Yeah.
cycle. Whereas here, it's all about growth. Like we were supposed to do. Yamaha does a music camp every 2 years. 4 years ago, I had the pleasure of doing it with them in Mont Saint Anne in Quebec, and that was really cool. It's like a 3-day sort of thing where you're basically doing a massive clinic for like 20 kids.
That's awesome.
On different stuff
Yeah.
on your instrument, and we were supposed to do it this year in Whistler.
What?
Oh, that
And
would've been sweet.
Obviously didn't happen because it's like the
Yeah.
July, like last week of June going into July, so that wasn't happening. And this year was the first year. Usually we only do it for Canadian students. This year was the first year we were going to do it international.
Oh.
So I was really gunning for that to happen. But
Yeah.
having a lot of these opportunities to train teachers, so essentially putting on clinic seminars for the education and the materials we do, doing examinations where I have to adjudicate students, and then doing these camp clinics has really kind of made me think, and I started doing this a few years ago, well, why can't I just maybe start doing my own clinics? Because
100%.
I'm going to be honest, like I'm not a Yamaha artist. I would love to be. Wink, wink,
Yamaha.
but I know, like I kind of joke, I'm very unpopular. If you go on my Instagram too, it says that, highly unpopular. I feel like I feel like I fly under the radar a lot, and
Yeah.
I a lot of that's nobody's fault but my own, because
I feel the same thing. It's
Yeah.
with myself for sure.
I'm not great at self-promotion.
Yeah.
But on top of that too, like I've just been so focused on my playing a lot and not a lot of the that it's really easy for me to operate on.
Yes. Yeah.
But I do know that there are people who like what I do, and especially when it comes to the education stuff, they value what I bring to the table for that and to pass information for drums on to them. So I started just setting up independent clinics through Long McQuaid, and I did a few of them already.
Yeah, that'd be perfect
Um,
for you.
So
Yeah.
so I usually do at least like one a year with them, and then I was this year supposed to be doing one out in Brockville, um, which it's a long story how this one came about, but it was going to be my own independent clinic set up through like a music school out there.
Yeah.
So it was something I started to kind of take the ball and run with for myself on top of the kind of sanctioned Yamaha education stuff that I was doing already. Um, so
So
that
maybe when the world returns to
yeah,
normal.
we'll see what happens. So doing the YouTube video stuff is a way for me to kind of keep that muscle constantly flexed.
Yeah.
And I
If I can
suppose
use a
you're doing like a
metaphor.
lot of lessons just online as well,
Yeah,
right? Like a
I
lot of
do
it
have to
would.
say, and this is a big thank you to like any of my Yamaha students that might be listening to this podcast episode. I have to thank them for keeping up with doing their lessons during this time. I think our school as a whole, when COVID hit, we weren't sure how this was going to go, but we ended up having, I think, might be even a little higher, but at least 85% student retention
What?
for
That's
online
great.
lessons.
I lost
So,
like
Wow.
2/3
yeah.
of my students, so good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, same. So, say a student, comes to you, is part of your group class for a year, comes to you for a year, leaves after a year for whatever reason. What are you hoping to send them away with more than anything?
The ability to fish.
So there are a couple of different ways of looking at it, and like I could look at it from the musical standpoint. I'm hoping to give them enough experience to become better at their instrument without feeling like it's a lot of work.
Mm.
Doing a group class is great because it becomes more of a social activity, and it becomes less about perfection of the material on a steady basis and more so about okay, like, because the other great thing about our program is that we use MIDI tracks for every single portion of our exercises. So in other words, when they're learning how to play like just a straight eighth notes, four on the floor rock groove, they're not just learning it to a click. They're actually learning, okay, we're gonna put some music to it,
Oh,
and I
nice.
have the ability to speed it up, slow it down,
Oh,
and
okay.
we have that as a good form for them to learn while listening, learn while playing along, learn while playing with other students. So on one level, I do hope that they become better musicians, obviously, but I think for those group class students, especially the ones that are extremely shy, I'm hoping that they gain more social, like a more socially inept way of experiencing things. So in other words, if I've got some really shy kids or some students who they're not used to being with other kids, I'm hoping by the end of that year that they've made friends with all those kids. And like I had some classes where a few of them actually had added each other on Facebook, and they were starting their own little like band with
Yeah.
some other people that they knew, and like they became friends. It's kind of similar to like when you go away for summer camp when you were younger, and
Mm-hmm.
you get that one like pen pal friend of yours that is like, oh man, he lives like
Sure.
2 hours away, but we write each other all the time, or now we're Facebook friends and we talk. And
That's cool.
yeah, I'm hoping to kind of develop a little bit more of those social skills for these kids, which, because let's be honest as well, I could probably count on one hand the handful of students over the years that have like, especially through Yamaha, that have maybe gone on to do this as a career.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's not always the goal, right? Like you're hoping that they're able to get these lessons as a kind of like a life lesson for them in a way. And music is a really good communal aspect that helps us grow in our own educational endeavors. So some kids, like I have one student who ended up becoming an accountant, but he's like, but now I feel I was so shy when I was younger, and now I feel like, having done the classes, and he did 4 years with me doing those classes and being in a large group of kids, it gave him more of an ability to talk to people,
Yeah. Yeah.
which you can't beat that, having those experiences when you're like, that was Humber for me,
Hmm.
because even though I still like kind of being by myself, my idea of a good time is sitting with a podcast or a good book or like a
Yeah.
horror film.
Have you seen Hereditary?
Not yet.
Oh, dude.
I will get onto that eventually.
Midsummer too. Ooh.
But Humber was great because I was able to forge enough relationships and learn how to talk and be social with other people, because I knew that, well, it's not only part of like the gig, but these are like, I had an ex-girlfriend in high school who she was looking forward to going to college and university so much, because she's like, well, these are the relationships that I'm going to forge for the rest of my life.
Sure. Yeah.
And little did I realize, like, that was so true for myself.
Yeah, I didn't stick
Um,
around long enough for that. That was my bad.
Hmm.
I like literally like I don't think I speak to anyone that I went to Humber with.
Oh man.
Except
But
for
that's
me.
because I was there for 1 year and gone, and there for 1 year. And yeah, Al.
Yeah.
But Al, I know you through Will, and Mars man.
That's true, actually. Yeah, we more connected after school. Yeah.
Like, I remember, so Al, I remember the first moment I ever met you. It was literally in the front foyer of Marsman. You walked through the door. I was sitting there with Will because I think we were doing either a summer camp or some form of summer lessons, and Will started talking to you, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, do you know Spink? Oh, I know Spink. And that was the first time we ever met each other, was at Marsman.
Nice.
Yeah. And I also want to, I kind of want to quickly preface too, I don't want to sound like I'm beating the drum for like post-secondary education or Humber.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
We need both sides.
yeah. Well, I don't even want to know if I'm on a side, because I've got maybe a couple like really quick anecdotes that might actually kind of like show both of those sides. Like,
Yeah,
for me, I needed school.
That's exactly
Like,
it. Yes.
I had to have it.
Yes.
Like, I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have those experiences. And I'm an academic enough. Like, I was one of those.
You learn well in that environment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I'm one of those good kids. Like, I always did the assignments that I was told to, and this, then the other, and
got good marks.
Yeah, I
Piece
mean,
of
for the
shit.
most part, there was a 1 year with I think it was second year theory. I won't say the teacher's name, but man, he admitted after our midterm, he's like, okay, so I feel like I didn't teach you guys well enough on this, because I think by our midterm, like 27 out of 30 kids were failing. And I had like 90. I have an extensive theory background, and I remember getting like 92 in theory first year, and then I think by midterm I was failing. I had a 45. I was
Theory's
like,
not one of
wow.
the
what
things
is
you can
this?
fuck around
Yeah.
with. You can't fake it.
But I have I've got a student of mine, or a former student, who I think he just finished his third year, and he called me up the other day because he's not only actually been on academic probation once, but he actually called me yesterday, kind of trying to figure out his future and thinking whether or not he wanted to take this year off, and maybe it was also a good idea because it's all going to be online, but he's also got a certain amount of time if he wants to finish to get his degree, because he's so close. And he was sort of talking about this, and I told him, you know what, if you were going to take a year off, this might be the year, man.
Yeah.
And you know
Online,
what?
I wouldn't do that fucking at all.
I wouldn't either.
But-
Not for no.
Yeah, but it definitely, for him, it's just not working. And I think outside of the marks aspect and maybe even the musical experience, he's just not finding it a great social atmosphere. It's definitely changed since when we've been there. And I think that's an important value, or an important lesson to kind of learn from that too, is that just because I had a great experience and it was something I needed, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a good enough one for somebody else. And
vice versa for me though too. I fucking talk shit about post-secondary the whole time. I mean, but I do think that I'm super biased.
Yeah,
you know?
I know, even for myself going there, it became more about the experiences and less about the piece of paper by the end.
Yeah, that seems to be
but
a widely sort of agreed upon notion for sure amongst most of us that went.
Unless you want to go for your master's, which I have to say, like, I've been kind of considering over the last little bit.
Oh man, you should.
Holt is doing his master's now, and he's like it's cool. He's doing an education thing. You
Oh,
and Hope
sweet.
would love
Okay.
that. Like he's going for music as education U of T,
Nice.
and you get paid to fucking go.
Well, part of the reason too is because Amber has been even saying to me, it's like you should be a professor.
Professor
Yeah.
Spink.
Professor Spink. I got the glasses already. So we're all set.
Oh man,
And
you'd
your
be
course
weird.
should be called Teach a Man to Fish.
All right, well, I gotta split, boys. It's been
That was cool, man.
it's been great. I wish we
We'll
could
do
go
it again.
longer, but I have a couple things I need to get to because I have a gig tomorrow and I got to make sure that I've got the tunes fully
Yeah.
fully down.
Lucky son of a bitch.
But I just did want to touch on maybe a bit of a sore spot. We'll find out. The Leafs game last night, man.
Oh, buddy. Man, so I had a weird. Okay, so I was watching it for the most part last night, and I had this weird sort of, like nobody can corroborate it because I was just watching it by myself. But I had this weird sort of like dialed in, like intuition in my brain while watching it. I'm watching and I see Cody Ceci going up the ice, and I go, "Oh man, he's gonna score a shorty," and he
Yeah,
scored a shorty.
He did, yeah.
And I'm sitting there in the overtime and I'm going, oh man, I know Dubois is going to get a hat trick and they're going to lose because every chance they had coming back the other way, like the Leafs had coming back, they had so much pressure at the beginning of that overtime and they're just not finishing it. And I'm going, it's not going to happen. Dubois getting a hat trick. And like 5 minutes later, it happened.
Yeah.
Dubois got a hat trick. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
That was a
I
tough
was like,
one
I
to
knew it.
watch,
I knew
man.
it was going to happen.
But they're getting
Yeah,
the
like
four. They're getting game 4 tonight, and then it was always going to 5, and it was always going to be painful the whole way. You know, that's what that
Yeah.
was my prediction.
I'm just hoping that because the other side of it, like never have we had a situation in modern NHL where you've got back-to-back playoff games.
Yes.
So I almost have to give advantage Columbus because Korpisalo is a little bit rested after getting pulled.
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
Lincoln's was just like he didn't need to do much because they really didn't have that many shots on him until like closer into like
Yeah.
overtime.
I think Matthews had 0
And-
shots for most of the game.
Yeah, that was like, oh man, they had a ton of pressure on him. So I get it. Although, oh man, if like that little strip that happened like in like the center of the defensive zone, like if Jenner had potted that one, oh man, Matthews would have not
Yeah,
heard the end of that.
that's
That would've
right.
been,
That
like,
would have been real bad. Freddie, you could tell
Yeah.
Freddie was just like, guys, what are you doing?
I screamed on my TV. I was like, you owe Freddie a 6-pack for that match.
Yeah, that was a.
Speaking
It's
of
a huge
partying,
assist.
fucking like the hotel that they're staying at. I mean, I guess it's playoffs, so they're not partying,
Yeah,
but like they're stuck there for like a month, aren't they?
for the whole time that
Just a
this
bunch
goes
of
on,
hockey
yeah.
douches just fucking hanging out on a floor of a nice hotel.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think it's more like 3 months because
Ooh.
this is only like preliminary
This is
round
prelims,
stuff,
yeah.
which and then the actual series like for the real playoffs.
Like
will-
if that
will
was
go after that.
musicians,
As they get eliminated, I
months in a
imagine they're allowed
hotel.
to leave, though. Right?
Yeah, I think you're allowed to leave the bubble after that. So I don't know. I'm not too sure about tonight. I don't know if I'll be watching because
Don't have the heart.
Amber's not crazy about hockey. So
oh,
Oh,
perfect.
okay. Yeah.
yeah, she's
Katie's
coming
not
over
either,
tonight,
but
so.
I'm trying to convert her. I don't know
I
if I
brought,
got.
I brought Amber. I brought Amber to we actually went to a game in Boston, Leafs versus Boston
Oh,
at
that would
TD
have been
Garden
super fun.
back in October, and it was hilarious because even though she was wearing, I gave her a Leaf jersey to wear.
Yeah.
Everybody around us is all like Bruins fans, and we had a
Obviously.
fun time. Like, in fact, I probably had more shade thrown on us from outside of the gardens
Yeah.
than
Really?
inside. Oh no, they were totally cool on the inside.
Yeah.
It's like we got out, and we're walking around looking for maybe a place to like eat, and you've got people going over like just constantly making rude remarks, and I'm just no selling it. I've got tunnel vision. I'm just going, no,
Yeah.
we're just gonna keep going. And
Apparently, it's all in good fun down there, though. Like they don't want to.
in the garden, I could see it. On the
Yeah.
outside, it was like I had a lot of like I was going, let's maybe not go down this street because I
Oh,
already had like a
shit.
couple people beat. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Wow.
talked back to a few of them, but at the same time, I had to be considerate of Amber. But
Yeah.
but no, it's hilarious because she was in there, and like even when Boston scored, she starts like going, like, "Yay, sports!" Like she started screaming. I'm like, "No, like no, that's
You're
wrong,
doing
wrong
it
team, wrong team."
wrong.
Yeah, but it was fun. That was like a bucket list thing for me to like see the Leafs on the road,
Yeah. Oh, nice.
especially down there. So because I love New England, like Yeah, that whole area is just amazing. But anyway,
Yeah.
fun times.
All right, dude. Well, man, we could talk all damn afternoon, you know. So maybe we'll get you on for another one in the
Yeah, that'd be great.
in the
I
near
would love to.
We
future.
should get Will involved in
And,
a whole
yeah.
four-way.
We can
Here's
be
some
the
four-way
launch pad for your podcast with Will.
podcast.
How about that?
B-sides and
Teach a
deep
man to
cuts.
finish.
Yeah.
Okay. No, Will and I for a long time we wanted to call it the B-sides and deep cuts
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm still
Which we have an Instagram for it.
I'm
You
still
do? I
waiting
just
for
saw it the other
episode
day.
1, man. Still waiting for
Yep.
episode 1. So if
Yep,
people want to
just,
follow you on YouTube, it's real easy. Just type Aaron Spink into the search bar and you'll find Aaron's channel. Lots of great content there, educational and otherwise. If you're a fan of sweet drum stuff, definitely go check it out. Aaron, you're on Instagram as well. It's
Yes.
at the real Aaron Spink.
Spinko84.
At Spinko84. Sorry, my bad. And,
Born in
and
1984? Shit.
anywhere
Old.
anywhere else that folks can get in touch with you if they want to? Or is that the main?
I'm on Facebook, so I have a Facebook page. You can search for it. I believe the handle would be facebook.com/therealaaronspink.
Mm.
And I'm on Twitter, Aaron Spink. Really, I just use that for news and sports, so I don't
Yeah,
really post
yeah.
much on there.
I
Yeah.
don't know what to do with Twitter. Like, we have a Twitter. Like, what? How are we gonna use it?
Well, I just post on it every time we post an episode.
But like, what do people go to Twitter for?
I don't really know.
News and sports.
To get
Yeah.
upset, to get
Things I don't give a
mad.
Shit about.
Yeah. Mike's on Instagram at Bruno the Meek, and you can find myself on Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at Alro Music. Find the podcast at Music Guy Podcast on YouTube, where we've got some sweet videos, including how to mix a podcast. Aaron, you can check that out if you're looking to start your
Oh yeah,
episode.
I definitely will.
And
I am subscribed.
There you go.
there you go. And there's also a video about lesson setup and some other cool stuff like that. And of course, we're also on Instagram, and you can go to musicguypodcast.com to find all of our past episodes. And if you want to support the show, just tell your friends, and we would that would help us a lot. We would love
We'll
you for
figure
it.
out how to monetize this eventually.
Yeah, we're not doing it for the money. We're not doing it.
You should do some
Oh,
sick merch. Sick merch.
Sick
I
merch.
mean,
Yeah.
I was saying
I'd
me
buy a
and Al
t-shirt.
could start an OnlyFans, but you know,
OnlyFans?
he was really
Oh,
against
yeah.
it.
If you guys did a T-shirt, I would.
Yeah,
rock it
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
All right.
Okay, fuck yeah.
So thanks everybody for listening. As always, thank you, Aaron, for being our special guest this week. It was a long time coming, and I'm glad that
Yeah,
we could
yeah,
get you
yeah.
on, man. That was great.
Thanks for having me, boys.
We'll do it again. We will.
We'll do it again. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.